Hey, what's up everyone? It's Luis from Doxy Studio and I am here to bring you some seriously cool content. Welcome to our very first tutorial in real-time visual effects. I've been dying to share my knowledge and secrets with you all and I'm so excited to finally be able to do it. Together, we're going to dive deep into the world of real-time visual effects in Unity and Unreal Engine soon. We'll be focusing mainly on games, but don't worry motion graphic enthusiasts, we'll be exploring some pretty sweet visual effects for commercial ads too, all using the power of real-time rendering. To kick things off, we are going to start with a bang and create an awesome fire orb AoE spell using just a few textures made in Substance Designer and a shader graph and particle systems in Unity. Then, in part 2, we'll take it even further and see how we can improve and use the same visual effects for different abilities, like a fiery aura for example. I hope you are as excited as I am for this new content and our first tutorial. But before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons for supporting me and keeping me inspired to create awesome content. Seriously, I can't thank you enough. You guys are the best. So now that we've set the stage, let's dive right in and start creating some amazing real-time visual effects together. Grab your coffee, tea or energy drink and let's get started. In this tutorial, we are going to create a simple orb effect. It is magic. This could be AoE, for example, or an aura. It's up to you. So we will create a simple effect. This is the first one. So we are going to use simple particles and we are going to use only basic shapes, basic meshes from Unity, just a simple sphere to create all of this. Okay. So to start, we are going to create a really cool texture on Substance Designer, this one. Okay, this texture includes 4 different textures. Okay, this image includes 4 different textures, and we will see how to create these on Substance Designer. Okay, so I'm using that technique called texture pack. So each channel has a different texture. If you check the red one as this one, the green as this one, the blue, and the alpha. Okay, so what I did when I want to create this type of textures, I want a kind of flow image, okay, on the horizontal one. And I want like horizontal lines, okay. I was going through for kind of stylized fire effect, okay. So I knew that I wanted to start with horizontal lines, then just do some magic until we get the final shape. Okay, and then I just did some variations. Just to follow this, like my goal was to create this, so I find myself using always the same principle. So the principle that I use is, let me go here. Oops, sorry, trying to pan. So what I did is always following the same principle. Directional warp. This is the main one. Okay. Directional warp and then slope sometimes. Okay. This is the main, those 2 main ones. So what I did was, for example, I want some horizontal lines. You can go with gradient linear. I like the gradient linear 3 because it has this white line in the middle. The fall off is bigger. And you can come here to tiling and, for example, have 3 lines or even increase more if you want. I went with gradient linear 3, or the noise that I like to call it TV noise. It's called anisotropic noise. I like to call it TV noise. It's simple. Okay, it looks like this at the start, but if you come here to the eye amount, you can decrease this, and as you can see, have less lines. For example, I like the 5 one or 7. Okay, that's pretty cool, and you even can play here with the X amount, not that much. So what I did is I went to a directional warp. I use to start the Pearly noise, and link these to the intensity input. Okay, And if you double click, you can start seeing something and increase here. I like to come here and increase really high the number, 150 for example. Then I just lower that down. And the Perlin noise, I can, let me double click so you can see, I reduce the scale way like this, okay? Then I come to directional warp and you start to see something, but what I want is just to deform these horizontal lines, right? So you can come here to the angle and play a bit with this, something like that. The intensity is way too big, so we can do something like that. So you got this final look. You can come here, just one click on Perlin noise, so we can have the preview on the last one, okay? And play with disorder until like the disorder is just like animating the Perlin noise, okay? So just get the look that you want. So that's one way. Then I like to go with a blur H key grayscale. Just blur this out a bit, not that much, but something like this. And then I can bring another directional warp, and this time go again. The input will be the same image, and again play with this. Let me go and crack this up to 200, and then dial down what I want. So something like this, just to break. You can play a bit now with the angle, but right now if I put it like this up, it's breaking a lot the horizontal lines. That's something that I don't really like. So right now what I feel is that we have a lot of white spots. So we can bring up the levels. Okay, and we can, so to pan, I do control right click, okay, because my middle mouse doesn't work on the mouse. So what I want here with levels is just increase the black spots, have a bit more contrast, something like that. So to the slope, what it does is will give me a more caustic look. We will get more hard edges. Let me show you what I mean. So I link the levels to the first input, and then I'm going to do a little nice trick, is that invert grayscale. So we got the opposite one, and then link this to a slope. And you'll see right now it's way too big. But if I lower down this intensity, we start getting those really cool hard edges, okay? Right now what I feel is that maybe here I've got a lot of X amount. So let me go something like with 3. Okay, that's cool. And the Perlin noise, let's go something like that. That's cool. Okay, so we have this image. Maybe we can increase. Okay, if we increase too much, you can see the artifacts here. I don't really like that, so let's bring down the intensity until we get the hard edges, but not that. So you can see the difference. And then blur again if you want, or you can use that. But I think blur is a bit good. Let's go. Or instead of using this, because I want a horizontal, simulate horizontal movement. So instead of that normal blur, you can go with directional blur. And here you have the angle again. So let's go with 0. Oops. 0. Okay, and increase this. If you want to keep those hard edges, okay, let's bring the levels. Right now I'm just like, I'm just trying to create something new. So here on this one, let's just bring up the white edges. And you can even do something like that. And then use a blend. Right now it's just experimenting stuff. Now, instead of copy, let's add. And we got that looks like fire. maybe not that much. Let me pick this here. Something like that. That's cool. So again, basic stuff. It's just noise or gradient, directional warp, blur a bit, directional warp again, levels, and then slope to get those hard edges and final look. Okay, so let's see what I did here to get that look. So I got with an isotropic noise or TV noise. Just change the X amount and Y amount, got the Perley noise to get that look, to deform or morph the horizontal lines. Again, this will be available on Patreon if you want to skip this part, but if you want to learn, that's up to you. So blur just a bit, 7 on blur just to get a bit of blur. Directional warp on the same one, just with a bit of angle. Okay. Directional warp again, but now using again the Perley noise, the basic Perley noise. The slope to get those hard edges, as you can see the difference. Okay, this is a blurry one, and here you get the hard edges. And as you know, this one, oops, sorry. Where was I? Okay, here is the final one of the last image. If we go here to red, it's the same one. So I linked this one to the RGB merge on the red channel. Okay, that's pretty cool. So now on the second one, so we got this. I want 2 more images where we could just get those horizontal effects. Okay, you can really spot the black strips and the white ones with a bit of deformation. So what I did here was trying with a gradient linear with tiling, okay? And same principle, again, Perley noise, directional warp. And what I did here was just a test and it worked fine. So what I did here was I had this linked here, okay? And I was having this look, I was trying something like blur, directional blur, and then I was getting a lot of white. Even with the levels, I could not get those black strips that I wanted. So this node was really close, so I was like, let's try something. Let's go and try linking these here with a blend, okay? With a blend with subtract, just cutting out like I had here, I had these. So I subtract and was able to get a lot of those black spots that I want. So we can really see those lines. I did the slope so we can get those caustics. I like to call caustics or hard edges. Okay. Then I did a directional warp to break that flow. Okay. This was too uniform for my taste. So I break it and I was feeling, okay, I need to have more gray spots. So I blur it, directional blur to give movement, and then blend to keep the hard edges, but keeping that, let's call it blur or glow effect. And link this to the green channel of the RGB merge. If I come here, you see the green one. At this point, I was like, will this work? Is this cool? And you can use a gradient map to check the colors of your image. So if you come here, gradient editor, and you can play grayscale, okay. And here, let's give some colors. And here, yellow, something like that. Oops, sorry, I'm trying. Okay, RGB. So I was just checking if this would work in a fiery mode. Okay, as you can see, I still live here, my gradient. So if I link here, oops. This gradient map was just to check if this would work or not with a fiery look. So I was quite happy, but I needed more variations. So I came here to this one. I was really happy with those black strips. So I did Perley noise with really a good scale, a bigger scale than previous ones. Directional warp to get another effect. So you can see the difference. We kind of break the lines, play with the levels so we can get more black and more white. And same thing that we did previously and get this one, okay? So you can see with just the difference here is just the directional warp on this one is controlled by the Perlin noise. And we get a really cool different image following the same, because when it's styling or and rotating, doing the offset animation, it will look different, and they are based on the same one, so it will really synchronize both effects at the same time. So at this point, I was happy. Like, I had a really cool one with nice caustic effects. I had this one, really cool details, and this one to fill up this one. Okay, but I felt like on this type of effects, like this one, it is cool to fill up the inside. Okay, you don't need to see much inside that orb, right? So I knew that I needed something to fill up the gaps, so I created this one. And again, it's really basic. I have this noise, the TV noise, with 3 and 24. Okay, Perlin noise with a really small scale, so I could warp. Again, as you see, it's the same principle, getting different shapes, the different textures. That's why I love Substance Design. It's just a little difference. For example, here on intensity, it will create a really different image at the end. So again, directional warp controlled by a Perlin noise, blur, directional warp on the same, okay, with 0 angle just to get different shapes, as you can see, just to open up those black spots, slope to get those hard edges, levels to increase the black spots or increase the contrast, blur because it was too detailed here, and I just had the other 3 with details. This one was just to fill up the gaps. So I blurred it a lot and then linked our 4th texture to the alpha channel. Okay. One thing that I want to mention here, we're not going to cover this on this tutorial, but we are going to cover on the second part of this tutorial, that blurring out your image like we did here on this one, getting those like those details, those blurs there, they are really important. And that's because when you want to dissolve a texture, what you do on Unity is just like playing here with levels, and you can dissolve a really nice effect using this. For example, if we go up and test it out, you can test on Substance Designer by using levels and just dissolving like this to see how it will look. Okay, that's pretty cool. So that's the main thing. So again, following the same principle like we did here, we created that cool texture. So you are happy, you created a RGB merge, you link the 4 texture, one to each channel, RGB and alpha, the A, and you press here, save, and you save your texture. Then you just import here to Unity as texture 1. Okay. The other textures that I'm using on this project is just a simple glow, as you can see here, and another glow with a more hard edges here. And we are not using this one, but we might use on the future. I don't know why, but I imported this. I always have in all my projects these three textures. Okay, so for the shader graph, I'm going to try to keep this tutorial really simple. So we are going to follow what I did on this shader graph. Okay. So what I did, let me create, how do you pan on, okay, it's Alt left click, it's different on texture. So what I did here is just came here, right click, create a shader graph, URP, I'm using Universal Render Pipeline. Let me explain why I'm using Universal Render Pipeline, because some of you are creating a mobile game or a console game, so you need to use Universal Render Pipeline. That's why my tutorials are going to be covered on this render pipeline, okay? instead of using, for example, HD render pipeline or the normal one. So we are keeping the universal render pipeline. And then on global volume, I just have bloom or that glow, as you can see here. Get that glow. Panini projection is something that I come from film and commercial industry, so this is really cool just to get a bit of distortion. Okay, here in the middle. Tone mapping, this is really important to use the ACES color gamut to have better colors, better saturation. If I turn this off, you can see a lot of colors, bad colors. So this color gamut is really better to get better look, and a vignette just to darken the corner spots. That's simple as that. And then I have just a floor with a black material and then a skylight. Okay, everything. This project will be on Patreon if you want to just download and follow along. So here I create shader graph, URP lit shader graph or unlit shader graph. You can pick anything you want, because if you come here, let's go tutorial 01 making. Okay, let's double click. You can pick any of those, because here on the graph inspector, you can come here and change to whatever you want. We are going to use unlit because we don't want our effect to be being affected by lights and shadows. Okay, we want to keep something really simple as this one. Let me just lock this down here so you can see what we are doing. Okay, and for our colors, where is my main preview? Okay, I need to decrease this. Sorry about that. Really hate this UI, but okay. So we are going to do with unlit. We want transparent because we want to have alpha. Okay. Render face, by now, for now, we are going to explore both, but in future tutorials, we are going to create different ones, because it would be cool to have a color in the front of the effect and on the back faces have a darker color, but we will check that later. I want to keep things really simple on this one. And that's right. Let's go with this. I don't want to control anything more. Alpha clipping, we are going to explore this later. Again, the alpha clip will help us dissolve the textures like we explore here with levels. Remember, with this one, this will be the alpha clipping, and we will be able to control this. Pretty cool. So again, for now, we are not exploring that. So what we need for our effect, let's break it down. We need a texture, right? We need to offset the texture so we can animate the texture going to the right or left or up or down. Lucky for us, Substance Designer creates these textures and they are tileable. That meaning that if you pan those textures, you won't see seams between them because they are tileable. And that's really important, and that's why I love using Substance Designer instead of drawing myself all the textures, because it creates tileable textures. And if you offset them here in Unity, not Houdini, in Unity, they will look altogether seamless. Okay, so again, we need a texture, we need offset speed, let's call it like that, and we need color. We want to give color to our textures. Okay, so the color, it can be controlled by our effect here. Okay, but you can put a color if you don't want to use effects. Okay, so let's go what we want. We want texture 2D. Let's call it main texture. Oops, let me write it correctly. Okay, we want a vector 2 for the offset speed. Okay, you can do something really cool here. It's called tiling. For example, here on Substance Design, let me show you what I mean. You want something to control the size of your texture. It's the same as coming here. Let me see if you have transform to the. Imagine if you have something like this. Oops. multiply with. You can control this and still be tileable. Okay. Or even so like this and increase this. So you want to control, have like this transform 2D there to create to control the tiles. Okay. So let's come here. We know that we want that. So let's go with vector 2 and let's go with tiling. How do you write tiling? Is double L? I don't know. Let's go with double L. If it's not, we will change later. And we can have a color. Okay. And this color can be just color. And here, let's change to HDR and let's use white to start as default. On main texture, we can drag this here and use a sample texture 2D. So right now we see white here because we don't have any default texture. For our sake, so we can see what we are doing here on shader graph, let's link our texture to our default one. Okay, so we can preview here and pick one of the channels to go to the alpha. And we start seeing something here. If you want, you can right click and change to a quad. I like to use a sphere because our final result will be a sphere. So it's good to see this here. I change the color. Let's bring this color here and change to base color. Okay, pretty simple. And we have something really cool here. So we are using the R channel. So that means that we are using this one. Okay, let's go here. So we have this texture and now we want to offset to animate it. To do that, we need the offset or the tiling and offset UV. Okay, pretty cool. And link this here. So as you can see, and now I can see that I wrote it wrong. I misspelled. It's just one L. Okay, that's cool. That's what we want. So we can link this tiling here. You can see why I use vector 2 because we have X and Y. So links this here. And we have the offset. So let me come here to the tiling. Let's use 1 and 1 on default. Okay, that's pretty cool. And let me show you what I mean by using tiling. You can see that we are doing tiling here. We are changing the scale of our texture. And that's really important here because, for example, you can see on this one, on this yellow one, I'm changing the tiling of it to get more lines as I want. Now, if I change here the offset, let me come here. If I change this offset, you can see that we are animating the texture, but we can't do this by hand or having keyframes, right? So we need to animate this offset. And when you think of animating on shader graph, you always use the time node. Time node is really a powerful one. And we are going to use this time here on the offset. But the time is a float and we want to, a vector 2 to control the X and Y because sometimes we want to animate upwards and other ones we want to animate on the sides. And we are going to use the offset speed so we can control the speed of our offset. So let's link this to a multiply. And let's link this here. And then this out here. So right now we are not animating, but as soon as I increase this, for example, to 1, you can see that we are now animating our sphere. So 0.5 here. And if I want vertical movement, we can change here. That's pretty much it. Okay, for this one. And right now we are locked to use the red channel. And that's not really cool, right? Because that means that if we want to use the green one, we have to create another shader graph or duplicate this one and keep changing that final one. So I'm going to create a system that allows us to change these ones when we create a material, like output parameters. So let's create a Boolean. Let's go with use red. Let's create another Boolean. For each channel, use green. Another Boolean, use blue. I think that there's another way to do this, but this is the fastest way that I I use. Okay. So what I want is just use a branch. And in Houdini, this or programming language, this is called the if statement. So for example, if it is use red here, if it is checked, we are going to use the red channel. Otherwise, we are not using anything. Okay. So now bear with me. If we want to use the green one, let's go with branch. So if we want to use the green one, let's link here. If we are not using the green one, let's use the previous one. Okay. And link this to the alpha. And again, let's use the blue. Let's go branch. Let's link the blue channel to the positive, the true response, and the false, use the previous one. And then the last one, the alpha, use branch, use here, link to the false, and link the alpha channel. Oops. Let me try to grab everything here and here to the alpha. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's lock here the default being this one. So that's pretty much it. With this simple system, we can pick the colors. Let me grab this here. Okay, and we can group these, right? And pick color channel. Okay. So with this group, we can pick use green, use red, green, blue, or alpha channel, or the last one. So that's pretty much it for this one. Let's save. And now we got ourselves a really nice, we move this to the side. So let's create a sphere, 3D object, sphere. Okay, so we have our shader graph. We can come here and create a material. Double click, right click, material. And by doing this, it's creating a material using that shader graph. Okay, so let's go with sphere test 01. And let's try, oops, I misspelled here. Let me just take off that. Okay, and as you can see, we got a pretty cool sphere here. And if I come here and change to blue, it is using a different one. So if I press play, let's wait a bit. Oops, wait. I'm using maximize. Let's go with focus. Sphere, let's use the right one. So if I press play now, it's not animated. And I hope you know why, because the X offset speed is really low. So let's change to 0.5. And here we have our animated tiling texture. If we want to use the blue, we got a different one. If we want to use the alpha, here is another one. And the green, just check. And if you want again, you can come here. And because this is HDR color, we can bring intensity, and the intensity will affect thanks to the bloom. That's pretty cool, right? That's cool. That looks like a sun. If we come use this one and maybe a more reddish color, see, we got a really cool sun. Right now, this is way too stupid. So we got the X. We can come here and got a different, really cool, different effect, and even over this, something like that. And it's a cool glowing effect, right? And you can pick here. The tiling, again, this is really cool because right now you can control here just by changing the tiling. And you can see that's pretty cool. That's image. That effect is really cool. And you can come here and, for example, on our project, we got this here. And we increase a lot the white tiling and we get a really cool effect. See? Maybe that's too much, maybe something like that. So this tiling is really important to get the effect that you want. Let's go with something crazy. Hey, that's pretty cool, right? Let's see this one. Okay, this the alpha channel, remember, is just to fill up the gaps. I think that's a really cool one. So right now, to test to create our effect, there's something that I want to mention. I like to use particle effects or particle systems, as you see here, and not duplicate the models, because if you come here, you can control the renders order or the sorting order, and that's really important because, for example, you got this one, and you want this sphere to be inside, okay, something like this, and you can't really control what you see in front of you. And then if you change here, that's a cool effect. But I prefer, instead of using normal spheres, okay, normal objects, I like to use the particle systems to emit a mesh and then control the render sorting order, okay? And we will see what I mean in just a minute. So let's start our effect. So to create an effect, and because I hope you are using this or this knowledge in your game, so you know when you spawn an effect, you normally use like your mouse click or something, and when you click, it gets the floor position or the character position and emits the effect on that point. So to start, I would like to create a game object. Let's go with the fire orb tutorial, VFX, okay, and reset this position, okay. This is on resetted transform, and now we are going to create all the effects inside. So let's go here and create effects particle system. Let's go here, and we will start on a simple sphere for now. So let's go here with the sphere, really lower that down. The speed, let's go to 0, so we want to emit there. And instead of rate over time, let's turn that off. And here, let's emit one particle. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Let's change this to lifetime for 1. So we got really cool. Only one sphere, only one particle at a time. Okay, so now we can move this up as we want without affecting the base one. So here is a little trick. So we got the particle systems and we got this really cool UI here to start, pause, and then control our effect here. But if we go up, we lost that UI, and that's pretty bad. So one trick that I like to use is just add a component to the main or the mother one. Go particle systems, turn off everything. And this means that now you can control your all your effects inside that main one. So let's call it sphere. And let's play with this one. So let's go here to render. I want to use a mesh. And as I said, I want to use the simple ones like we have here. Let's go with the mesh. And for the materials, we want to use a sphere test. And that's pretty cool. Let's change here's the tiling. I want here like this. And the main one, I want to use maybe this one. That's cool. And maybe something on 3. That's pretty cool. So I have this one. That's pretty cool. Maybe increase the size. Let's go something like 1.5. And that's the main one. Right now, let's duplicate this one. We have another sphere, and I want another material on this one because I want to use different colors and different channels. So let's Control D. Let's go sphere test 2. Let's not call it test. Let's sphere matte 2. And this one, let's go with sphere matte 1. Okay. On this one, let's go drag this here. Or if you want, come render and link this here. So on this one, I want to use maybe this, maybe tiling 1-on-1, less speed, and change the color maybe to a dark one. So here, you can come here to the main one, press reset, and now we got both textures. That's pretty cool, right? Now on this one, maybe I want more tiling. Something like this. That's pretty cool. And maybe I just change this 3.2. I want this to be almost quick as the main one. That's pretty cool. So the thing, remember I was talking about the render order. You want to know what is on top of each other. So I want this to be the main one. So I come here on the render settings. We got here we are not using sorting layers on this project, but you will have sorting layers, for example, visible effects or visual effects on your project, and you want to pick that layer. And inside order in layer, you want to pick the order of your renders. For example, this main one, okay? Oops. This main one, I want to render on top of the red one. So I come here and I change this to 1 and here leave it at 0. So it will render this on top of the other one. Right now we are not seeing many things, but you don't see much difference. Oops, wrong one, 0. But when you pile up different effects, like you see on this one, on the one that I created, okay, it's really important that you control that order in layer. Okay, so we got this here. That's pretty cool, but I want the other one. Let's go with math 3. And right now I want to use no intensity here. I want a darker red, maybe more something like that. And I want to use the fill up 1 and maybe go down here with tiling and everything. And here again, let's change the render material and press reset. So if you want to see that one here, you can go show only selector so you can see what are you doing. So right now, as you can see, it's pretty cool. We don't see that much, but let's go restart. Oops. And you can see all together. Maybe this color. Oops. Let's see if we can see. Okay. It's there. It's just giving. We can go with black. That's cool. So right now it's just up to you to create something really cool. That's cool. Maybe if you want, you can duplicate this or instead go here to emission and emit more of those. So we have a more darker or more reddish look here. Okay, that's too much for my taste, but 2, I think is cool. Okay, that's pretty cool for fire orb. And as you can see, I use different ones. We are still missing one of the materials, so we can do that. Let's go with this one. And so we are using the alpha, the red, and the green, and we are missing the blue. You don't need to do, but since we already created that one, let's use the blue one. And this, maybe I want an orange look just with 1 intensity. Let's drag this to sphere 3, press restart so we can see there. And right now I can see the tiling is way too big. So let's go with something like that. Okay, that's pretty cool. Something like that. Maybe not that much. Okay, but I think that's pretty cool, right? So we have our orbs, and right now they are not really that cool, right? They are just spinning like that. Maybe you like that effect, but I want to give a really turned or lean it a bit. If you come here to this and you rotate, you see nothing changes. And why is that? Because on the render, we have the render alignment to view. Even if I change here my view, it's always rendering the image towards or the mesh towards the camera. Okay, so if you change this to local, it's going to use that rotation on the transform. Okay, and that way we can control the rotation that we want. Okay, that's pretty cool. So let's go to 0, 0, 0 and don't exaggerate, just lean this a bit, maybe bring a bit to the front, that polar one. I don't like that much, but something like that. That's pretty cool, right? So right now we have 4 spheres, and I want to control the order, okay? So let's go with 5 here on the main one. On this one, let's remember which one is this. The red one, I want to keep this maybe at 3. This one will be at 0 or 1 because we will have a glow effect. Maybe, no, let's go with 0 here. And here, this one, I want on, I don't know, maybe 4 to be the second main one. So yeah, we can see it a bit better. So let me go put below red one. Yeah, that looks cool, right? So right now that's pretty cool. On sphere 1, maybe I want more tiles. And let's test one thing. Here 0.1 and here let's go with 0.4. And I don't know why, but I want to test, see if this looks cool. Let's see. That's pretty cool. I was just testing. Again, you can play with the offset, but let's go with the same principle. Okay, we have our basic shape. Now let's create the rings. The rings are really simple. So we can come here, for example, on sphere 2. Let's change it to ring. And let's go only select bounds. So on this one, instead, let's go reset this. Instead of emitting a shape like that, you can come here and increase here the size. Or if you don't want to change that, you can do as I did here on 3D start size and change here. Okay, so instead, because when you're working with transforms and so on with particles, it's good to leave the transform as it is, try to avoid working with it. So on the 3D, on the start size, let's turn on 3D start size, and here let's lower down this quite low number. Sorry, my brain just stopped there. So right now, let's, oops, why is it not working? Okay, sorry. So right now, let's pause this so we can see our ring, and let's increase the size a bit. We go to 2, 2.5, 0.001 and 2.5, and we have a nice ring. Can bring the spheres a bit down. Okay, I think they are way too big. Something like that. Maybe 2 just on the ring. Okay, this is a cool ring. Now let's go and create a material. Let's call ring mat 01. And this one, maybe I want to use, which one do I want to use? Maybe this is cool. Let me go grab this here. To the ring, I want a reddish color. Maybe I want the alpha here, but I won't really want a dark one. Oops. 0, and let's see. It looks like this. So now it's just testing, but I think that's cool. Maybe change it to tiling here. Okay, that's pretty cool. So we got one ring. Let's create another one, ring mat. And on this ring mat 2, I want to use maybe this one. Let's go ring mat here and restart this one. And ring mat 2, I want to bring up. So let's see how it looks. It's not render ring mat 2. Okay, we are not seeing that. Okay, that's pretty cool. We do, and Let's lower this a bit. Yeah. Hey, that one is really cool. And we can lower down this to 0.75, something like that. Maybe this is 2. And the outer one, let's go with 2.5. 2.25. Ah, that's cool. And I think the emission or intensity is way too big. Hey, something like that. And here, let's bring this more to the yellowish. Cool. Now we have a nice glowy effect. So now we have the basic shapes, the initial block out, and now let's bring up those, let's call it additional effects to fill up your effect. Let's call it like that. So we are going to create a glow and some embers, okay? So let's go with, and a smoke, I have a smoke too. I really went all out here. Let's go particle systems, and let's start with the glow. Okay, the initial glow. And as you can see here, let me go here, show only selected. So this is just a glow to fill up inside. Okay, it's just a cloudy glow. So let's create that here. So, oops. So here, come on, let's focus here. So on the shape, I want a sphere. Okay, I don't know the size of the sphere, but the start speed, let's go with 0 because I want to create something like that. And let's create a material. Create a material. Let's go with glow matte 01. And here I want universal render pipeline, particles, and emulate particles. And here on the base map, I want to use one of the textures that I use here. So the flow folly glow here, just a normal sphere with a gradient. Okay, nothing too fancy here. So where was I? So glow matte. So we have here, and it's going to be transparent and both. Okay, it doesn't matter here the render phase because we are going to use a billboard. So here on the render billboard particles, no, we want to use the glow matte. Okay, that's pretty cool. And now let's play with our particles. So we have our sphere. We want the color over lifetime to have a really nice alpha. Okay, we can use this pre-created gradient. So it starts with 0 alpha, increase a bit. Let's go something like that. And then fades out, fades in on the beginning and fades out on at the end of its life. So that's pretty cool. And now I want to random between colors. Let's go with something more yellow, something more like this. Oops. Okay. We have a really cool one. And now I want to see everything so we can see the size of our sphere, as you can see there. So let's decrease the radius, something like that. Hey, that's pretty cool. So we have our sphere and we want to move this up. Again, you can use the transform, or you can come here to the position and move here. That's pretty cool. So let's dial down, and let me see one thing is that here the size here is way too big. Let's go with 0.5. Yes, yes, yes. And something like that. Let's see. 0.75. And that's pretty cool. And because this is a glowy smoke, we can dial down a bit the alpha here. Okay, that's pretty cool, right? So we have really nice. So we want to pre-warm, so we can fill that up. And here on the emissions, we can increase the rate over time so we can fill up a bit. So right now I'm feeling that it's too yellowish, my taste. So let's go something like that. That's pretty cool. Right, so we have the basic glow. Let me decrease this a bit because it's going a lot outside. And now we don't see much variation. Okay. Let's dial down the yellowish part. We have a really nice variation. And here we can decrease. We have more variations of this glowy color. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's turn off. Oops. Turn off Joe. Oops, sorry, my mobile. As you can see, it's pretty cool. Okay, now we have a problem. As you can see, our glowing effects, we kind of not see them a lot because the render order. So we can come here and increase this. Okay. Maybe on 4. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, see, that's why ordering layer is pretty important when you are creating effects. So right now, just play with the glow. I have another glow to go a little bit outside. And then for the embers, this is a really cool one. So let's create another effect. Before going there, the smoke is really the same as the glow, but I have a little bit of speed. So it can go outside our sphere. So for the embers, let's go and create another particle system. Let's call it embers. Okay, and wait, let me just bring this up a bit. Okay, something like that. On embers, for now, let's turn off the speed. The shape is going to be a sphere again. And let's go with circle so we can play this a bit. And let's rotate not here, but here. Okay, let's go 0 and 90. Let's add speed, sorry, so we can see where are we emitting. So we are emitting outside. Maybe if I go, yeah, that's pretty cool. So we are emitting using the normals of that circle. So let's dial this down. We have something like that. Okay. And speed, we want to go between two constants. So 0.1 and maybe 0.5. Let's restart. Okay, pretty cool. Let's create another material. Let's go material. Let's call it embers. It's going to be the same as the glow, but never hurts to do same things. And lit, transparent, alpha, blah, blah, blah. Textures, now I want to use the Foley Glow Inner, okay, because it has that really hard glow on the center. Okay, so now let's go to render. I want to use billboard, but particles, I want to use the embers. Okay, pretty cool. It's different. And the size, let's go with the random between two constants. And I really want really small particles of 0.05. Let's go with pretty warm. And they are still way too big. So 0.05 and 0.01. Okay. And the start lifetime, I want to change it to between 1 and maybe 2. Maybe these could be the outer ones. Okay, that's pretty cool. So we are going to touch on the colors in a bit. So right now we have the shape, we have the emission. We can control here how many we want. Pretty cool. And let me just turn off the panini because it's pushing the edges. I don't know if you noticed that. Okay. And radius thickness, I think we can control. Okay, we want to emit only bit. We don't want to emit all in the center. Okay, because it was one, you can see the particles are emitting over there inside. And if we decrease this, we are emitting more close to the edge of that circle. That's what we want. So velocity over lifetime. So we want to push this up. That's too much. Maybe 0.25. That's pretty cool. And now we want to orbit. And voila. We want to follow the same movement that we got here. That's pretty cool. I still see that a lot of oops, start speed was fine, but here I don't like the size of it. Okay, that's pretty cool. And I want to color over lifetime to be like this, fade in and fade out. So let's press start, and we got a really cool Ember system. Right now we just need to tweak the colors, so random between two colors, and let's pick the yellow and orange, reddish orange one. And that's pretty cool. Right, if you want, let's change a bit the lifetime, and that's pretty much it. I feel it's still too big for the embers, and that's more like it. And if you want, we can increase the lifetime of this one, maybe to 2. Okay, so we have a main one, and then we can duplicate this one and have more particles here. Okay, but really they die really fast. You can see the difference here. Okay, that's pretty cool. And we can even come here, and maybe on this one we can increase a bit, and maybe on the outer ones let's increase the edge, something like that. And here, let me try to focus that, and this one, this edge, increase just a bit, something like that. And maybe these ones could be more yellowish and orange. That's pretty cool, right? We are really close to this one. So right now, what we are missing is just the smoke. If we duplicate this one and bring it here, and reset. So as you can see, the smoke really does a difference here to add more glowish effect, okay, to our particles. And the thing that I did is just, it's same glow matte, okay, and we have start speed, emission of 20, really big size here, as you can see. The size is between 0.5 and 3. You go only select visible. And rate over time, the circle, now we are emitting in a circle. And we got that smoky value. And again, it's a fade in, fade out, but here on the middle, we just have a 30 on alpha, so they can be really transparent because it's a smoke, right? Just having little nice detail here to keep working with the effect. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. So again, if you want to play with this, you can control, and instead of having something like that, we could, where are the rings? Here, instead of going up, we could come. Oops, I'm changing the wrong one, sorry. Let's go to graphs. Here are the materials that I want to change. And here, let's go with 0.5. And as you can see, we got a really cool different material. And here, let's go with 0.2. So here, let's go with 1 0.1, 0.2. Here, let's go with 0.15. On this one, just 0.25. And we got a pretty cool different shape. Right? Just by changing the offset. But right now, these embers doesn't work with our animation. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this one. So we got this one, and this one is one that I previously created. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You will have access to this project and the substance design and all the textures on my Patreon, and I hope you enjoyed this one. It was my first tutorial creating game visual effects, and on the second part, on the next tutorial, we are going to explore how we can change this effect to work, for example, as an aura for your character, or a shield, or you can distort inside and see inside with Fresnel and so on. So I want to explore that with you, because sometimes you create an effect and you use it, the same principle or the same textures or the same effect, even the same effect on different skills and different abilities just by tweaking some things. So let's see the next one. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you enjoy this new content that I'm creating. See you around, and see you on the next one. Bye bye.